when the current programs are helping.
And it's better to ease our way out of it rather than throwing the whole economy into an ice bath.
The new programs will still cost more than $7 billion and are expected to end in early May. Isha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
A Manitoba judge has ruled that COVID-19 public health restrictions put in place by the province last year were not a violation of charter rights. A court challenge had been brought by 7 Manitoba churches who claimed the restrictions unjustly violated their freedoms. Lana Cole reports.
In his ruling handed down this morning, Court of Queen's Bench Chief Justice Glenn Joyal said the government had the right to introduce lockdowns in an effort to slow COVID spread. The churches had argued that the restrictions infringed on charter rights and freedoms and were unconstitutional and undemocratic. The province's lawyers said the measures were needed to keep hospitals from being overwhelmed during the pandemic. In 2 separate decisions, Joyal dismissed the challenge this morning. Joyal said putting restrictions in place under the Public Health Act is legitimate, and he said while the orders did restrict the religious rights and freedoms of the applicants, it was necessary in response to a public health emergency. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More than a quarter of Quebec parents with children aged 5 to 11 say they will not get them vaccinated against COVID-19. That's based on a survey by Quebec's Public Health Research Institute. Chloe Rinaldi has those details.
The survey found that about 2/3 of parents with children aged 5 to 11 would likely get them vaccinated against COVID-19. But about 10% of parents are still unsure, and more than 22% say they wouldn't get their children vaccinated. It's understandable given the current situation, says Eve Dubé, a medical anthropologist with the INSPQ.
Of course, we know that children are the group the less at risk of severe complication of COVID, so that definitely play a role in parents' decision. We also know that intention tend to increase once a program are announced.
And she believes once parents have more information, they might change their mind. So far, no COVID-19 vaccine has been approved for younger children in Canada. Pfizer submitted its application to Health Canada earlier this week. Chloe Rinaldi, CBC News, Montreal.
Leaders of the G20 nations will gather for a key summit next week in Rome. Curbing CO2 emissions is atop the agenda. But as Megan Williams reports, several major polluters have yet to agree on those targets.
Ahead of the G20 summit here in Rome next week, China, India, and Russia are resisting global pressure to cut emissions and phase out coal to reach the target of halting global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius. The gathering is seen as a crucial stepping stone to the major COP26 climate summit in Glasgow in early November.
The world is not yet on track to match our commitments under the Paris Agreement. We should be fully aware of that,
said EU President Ursula von der Leyen, referring to the 2015 UN climate change agreement to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees. But so far, unanimous agreement on putting an end to fossil fuel subsidies and coal burning has proved elusive. China has promised to reduce its net CO2 emissions to zero by 2060. But half of the electricity of the world's biggest polluter is still fueled by burning coal. Megan Williams, CBC News, Rome.
So that was the news, CBC News in Vancouver. We are in 21st of October 2021, and I'm sharing this one for my international viewers outside Canada. They might want to put some pieces together. So if in your country all the radio or major radio stations, like government-sponsored radio station, let me pull aside because there is an ambulance coming. No, a firefighter truck. Oh yeah, he's going fast. That's a 30 kilometer an hour zone, but he has the priority, of course. I don't mind it. Yeah, if you notice that the government-funded radio stations are pushing this COVID-19 vaccination agenda, talking about COVID-19, probably 70%, 80% of the news time, let's say out of the 5 minutes news, you get 4 minutes news about COVID. And if you notice that they invite to interviews like known names and scientists that support mandatory vaccination. And if you notice that certain politicians are pushing certain agenda, if you notice that they try to convince you that a majority did that for the well-being of the country, and they got vaccinated. If you notice that they interview people and public figures pushing this type of agenda, trying to convince people. And if you notice that all the callers, or most of the callers, are in favor of COVID-19 vaccine, you need to think about what's going on. Are all stupid, or it's just a well-crafted system based on an agenda that is meant to convince people, and the naive ones, that this is the new normal, so you should follow it, or if you resist, you will fall and you will suffer. So that was the news from Vancouver, with some beautiful colors of the fall, and you should see that one in the videos instead of getting depressive thoughts, because there's not much you can change. You can resist the vaccination, you can resist the stupid